Winters in the 60s and 70s weren't for the faint of heart. Houses were drafty, cars groaned in the cold, and kids trudged to school through snowdrifts that seemed taller than they were. There were no heated car seats, no high-tech coats, and no quick trips to the thermostat, because turning it up meant hearing Dad yell about the gas bill. Back then, surviving winter meant creativity, toughness, and a bit of old-fashioned grit. People didn't wait for comfort. They made it. From stuffing towels under doors to warming beds with hot water bottles, life in those icy months was equal parts challenge and charm. Here are 12 things Americans did to survive freezing winters in the 60s and 70s, back when cold weather built character, not complaints. Stuffing windows and doors with towels and newspapers. Before double-pane windows and proper insulation, homes in winter were drafty, cold, and full of creative solutions. Families became their own insulation experts, turning to whatever they could find to keep the chill out. Old towels were rolled and stuffed under doors, newspapers packed tightly along windowsills, and sometimes even plastic sheeting taped across entire windows to stop the icy air from creeping in. It wasn't pretty, and it sure wasn't warm, but it worked well enough. You could still hear the wind howling outside and see your breath inside, but you felt proud of your homemade handiwork. Those makeshift fixes weren't just about comfort. They were about endurance, resourcefulness, and making the best of what you had. Back in the 60s and 70s, the thermostat wasn't something you casually touched. It was sacred. Put on a sweater was the standard response to anyone daring to complain about the cold. Families piled on layer after layer. Flannel pajamas under jeans, wool socks pulled up to the knees, and sweaters thick enough to stand on their own. Everyone huddled under heavy quilts or crocheted afghans that felt like armor against the chill. Sometimes you'd wake to frost etched on the inside of your windows, but no one thought much of it. Warmth came from blankets, not buttons, and when all else failed, you warmed your toes on the family dog, the most reliable heater in the house. Winter mornings were a battle between man and machine. Cars back then didn't like the cold any more than people did. Batteries froze, locks jammed, and engines refused to start without a fight. Every driver had their own ritual, scraping the windshield with an old credit card, running the engine for 10 minutes before leaving, or even throwing a blanket over the hood to keep it warm. Some used block heaters, others just crossed their fingers. When the engine finally sputtered to life, you felt a small thrill of victory. And if it didn't, well, that's when the neighbor showed up with jumper cables, because in winter everyone looked out for each other. Wool was the armor of winter, heavy, scratchy, and absolutely essential. Before fleece or down jackets, warmth came from layers of thick wool sweaters, mittens, and socks that never quite dried. Every home had a distinct smell during the season. Wet wool steaming near radiators or wood stoves. Kids came in from sledding with frozen fingers and bright red cheeks, peeling off layers that landed in soggy heaps by the fire. Moms warned, "Don't hang them too close or they'll scorch." But no one listened. Itchy or not, wool kept you alive when the wind howled outside. It was more than fabric. It was a survival tool, and everyone wore it with pride. The bedrooms in winter were cold enough to make you shiver the moment you slid under the covers. So families found clever ways to turn those icy sheets into a haven of warmth. Before bed, Mom would fill hot water bottles or heat bricks in the oven, wrapping them in towels to place at the foot of the bed. The smell of warm rubber and cotton became part of bedtime itself. Later, electric blankets arrived, a true luxury that felt like sleeping on sunshine. Of course, everyone joked about them catching fire, but that never stopped anyone. That first moment of warmth against the cold was pure comfort. A simple pleasure that made even the harshest nights feel safe. In many homes, the fireplace or wood stove wasn't decoration. It was the heart of winter. The fire's steady crackle was the soundtrack of cold months. Its warmth, a blessing you had to earn through hours of splitting, stacking, and hauling wood. The smell of burning pine or oak seeped into everything. The furniture, your clothes, your memories. Families gathered close to the fire to read, talk, or thaw out after school. Wet mittens hung nearby, steaming gently as they dried. The closer you sat, the toastier you felt. Step too far, and you were shivering again. Those fires didn't just heat the house, they built moments of closeness, laughter, and survival that defined winter life. When the temperatures plunged below zero, everything froze. Pipes, locks, even the inside of car doors. That's when the trusty household hairdryer turned into a survival tool. Moms would run outside with an extension cord, blasting warm air into frozen locks while Dad muttered about old junk that never works. If the pipes froze, someone would crawl under the sink, waving the hairdryer like a magic wand, praying for that first glorious drip of water. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. Every family had their tricks. A lighter on a key, a hot rag on a faucet, or the ever-faithful blow-dryer. Winter wasn't about comfort. It was about problem-solving with whatever you had on hand. The kitchen wasn't just where dinner was made, it was where the family stayed warm. When the oven was on, the whole house seemed to thaw. Pots of chili or stew simmered all day, their steam fogging up the windows, while casseroles baked until golden and bubbling. The smell of homemade bread filled the air, and kids would sit close to the stove, warming their hands around mugs of cocoa. Some meals were meant to feed, others were meant to heat. The sound of clinking pots, the hiss of steam, and the hum of conversation made the kitchen the heart of winter. Nothing beat that feeling. Warmth, love, and the taste of something cooked slow and shared together. After a long day of sledding, snowball fights, or trudging home from school, kids would burst through the door, soaked to the bone, coats dripping, mittens frozen stiff, and boots leaving trails of slush across the floor. The next step was always the same. Line everything up by the heater or wood stove. Soon, the room filled with the earthy scent of wet wool and melting snow. Socks smoked, gloves sizzled, and the floor turned into a puddle zone. Everyone tried to dry their things first, knowing they would need them again tomorrow. It was messy, loud, and wonderful. By morning, the clothes were mostly dry, stiff as boards but ready for another day in the cold. In the 60s and 70s, snowblowers were rare luxuries. Your shovel was your best friend. When the snow came down, everyone grabbed one. Kids cleared sidewalks before school, dads tackled the driveway before work, and moms kept the porch and steps safe. The sound of metal scraping against concrete echoed through neighborhoods every morning. You would sweat through your coat even though your breath froze in the air. When the snowplow came by and buried the end of the driveway again, you just sighed and started over. It was exhausting, but it built something more than muscles. It built pride. When you looked at your freshly cleared path, you knew you had earned every bit of warmth waiting inside. Before insulated windows and fancy thermostats, families had to get creative to keep the warmth in. Thick curtains stayed closed tight, and homemade draft snakes, long fabric tubes stuffed with rice, beans, or even old socks were placed along doorways to stop the cold from creeping in. Blankets were sometimes nailed up between rooms to keep the heat trapped where the family gathered. Every little trick helped, and everyone knew not to linger near the windows. That's where the chill lived. It might not have looked pretty, but it made all the difference. Those little touches of old-fashioned ingenuity turned cold, creaky houses into cozy shelters against the winter's bite, relying on each other to get through it. Winters back then could be long, dark, and bone-chilling. But no one faced them alone. Neighbors helped push cars out of snowdrifts, shared firewood, and checked in on the elderly when storms rolled through. Inside the home, families gathered in the warmest room, sharing blankets, stories, and endless cups of coffee. When the power went out, you lit candles and made the best of it, laughing at the shadows on the wall. The cold outside made the warmth inside feel sacred. Survival wasn't just about tools or tricks. It was about community. In the end, it wasn't central heating that got people through winter. Winters in the 60s and 70s were tough, but they brought people closer. Families didn't rely on gadgets or fancy heating. They relied on grit, love, and each other. The cold was fierce, but the warmth was real. What's your favorite winter memory? Share it in the comments. We love hearing your stories. And if this brought back memories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more trips down memory lane. Winters in the 60s and 70s were tougher, colder, and slower, but they were filled with heart. Families worked together, neighbors looked out for one another, and even the hardest nights ended with laughter by the fire. What's your favorite winter memory? Share it in the comments. We love reading your stories, and remember every one of them. And if this brought back memories, winters back then could be long, dark, and bone-chilling, but no one faced them alone. Neighbors helped push cars out of snowdrifts, shared firewood, and checked in on the elderly when storms rolled through. Inside the home, families gathered in the warmest room, sharing blankets, stories, and endless cups of coffee. When the power went out, you lit candles and made the best of it, laughing at the shadows on the wall. The cold outside made the warmth inside feel sacred. Survival wasn't just about tools or tricks. It was about community. In the end, it wasn't central heating that got people through winter. It was each other. Winters in the 1960s and 70s were tough, but they brought people closer. Families didn't rely on gadgets or fancy heating. They relied on grit, love, and each other.